This is Landscape, History, and Integrity. I want to talk to you today about LiDAR and what it has provided as an impact on not just the use to survey lands. It's used for surveying large areas of land, shorelines, etc. I'm sure it'll probably be used to resurvey the valleys up in North Carolina, western North Carolina, and eastern Tennessee, where the Hurricane Helene floods just ripped through there and totally reshaped the surface of the earth. So LiDAR is used in a lot of different ways. LiDAR is the use of like planes or helicopters or drones that they fly over, and they can cover very wide sections of the landscape and look at what's down there. In the case of the Amazon, they've used it that they can see through trees. They use it to use its infrared light. They use with this particular kind of topographic LiDAR. There's multiple kind of LiDARs that they use, but this is topographic LiDAR that uses infrared light. And they were able to make images of the surface of the earth, and this is an example of one that they made. And you can see, looking at this, you can tell that there are structures that are clearly man-made, and they're not only structures that are above the earth, but excavations. They're apparently roads or streets, those kind of things. You can see with no problem. In one area there is, let's see if I can move it over, yeah, sort of over here. Yeah, over here on this side, there's looks like there might be an existing, that could be a road from years ago. I don't have the details of the landscape here, but it may be a contemporary road. So they were able to fly over the Amazon, and what they found is, hey, we thought there was nothing in the landscape of the Amazon. We thought that people never lived in the Amazon hardly, except for a few Indians who were hunter-gatherer types. And what this is revealing is that there were huge cities there. I'll list below a video by Graham Hancock, or with Graham Hancock, and an interview. You've probably seen, if you're interested in this kind of thing, seen Graham Hancock on various shows or etc. But I'll list this one below. And Hancock is, in his conversation about that, he talks about how whenever the Columbus came, there were, millions of people here on the in the New World, not only in South America and the Amazon, but across North America as well. But there's some evidence, of course, that the Europeans brought smallpox or other kind of diseases that just ravaged the Indian population, the native Indian population, and it just killed off millions of people. But apparently there was a Spanish explorer who went through the Amazon area and saw that there was all this civilization there. There were cities that were as large as London and those kind of European cities at the time. But after 100 years, no Spanish came through for a while, and then about 100 years later, other Spanish explorers decided to explore the similar area, and there was nobody there. It was just all Amazon rainforest. And so it's been assumed until now, recently, that that was the case, that no one lived there. Well, this was interesting to me because it supports. I like to put things together. Let's put it that way, to connect the dots, and it supports other information that I get from other sources. And so I thought that I would share with you some information from a Dr. Nathaniel Jeanson. He's a biologist, or got his degree of doctorate in biology from Harvard, and he does research on the male Y chromosome DNA, and that gives you different information than the female. Most of what we look at is through the mother, so you go back generations through the mother. This may be because uh, historically we knew that, especially as the Western civilization, cultures like the Jewish culture, they went through the mother. So you sort of looked at things that way. But anyway, he does it with the Y chromosome, and it's really reveals a lot of information that people might not have thought about too much before because they're so focused on the female chromosome. And so what he's found is, in his findings, one of the things he talks about is that we used to think that, and many people still do, that 100 to 50,000 years ago, that humanity started moving out of Africa and across the Middle East, across Asia, and across Europe. And then about 15,000 years ago, they finally moved across the Bering Strait, and humanity was introduced to the what we call the New World. And then, nothing happened for 10,000 years or so, when basically these people just were hunter-gatherers in North America and South America, and weren't very sophisticated or anything. And then finally, just a few thousand years ago, or a few hundred years ago, hundreds of thousands, these civilizations finally happened. And he's looked at what's going on with the Y chromosome with the populations, and what he does is he looks for he just uses the same genetic information that any person would use. So he looks for people across the world. He's got genetic information for people in all continents. He's looking for more. You can send in your genetic information if you want to. And so he's looking at what is shown using this genetic information. And there's a whole lot of different population groups that can be found. The DNA is different. The why things are lined up a little bit differently for different population groups, as we know this. And so he's looking at, there are people who we historically consider Caucasian, who the Caucasian DNA is showing up in Africa and Asia and South America, all over the place. And why is this? So I'll let you look at his video to learn more about that. But he proposes that it looks more like possibly looking at the genetic information, that there have been multiple incursions of humanity into the New World. That is, they came across the Bering Strait once, and then maybe a few hundred or a few thousand years later, another group would come across the Bering Strait, etc. And that these different peoples group would push each other in different directions. There's an interesting video that he's done on the Indians in North America, and just looking at how those groups pushed each other around. And he layers his information along with linguistic findings of how language, seeing how people, their languages are, you can sort of tell how they moved, because typically in linguistics, a word may get changed as it moves across the landscape, right? And so words that, and you find this a lot, if you really get into the ancient Greek and Mesopotamian and Egyptian and all these languages out of that are thousands of years old, linguists are showing that it looks like certain languages are definitely older than others, because they're more complicated even than modern languages in some cases. Very interesting. But so he layers the linguistic information over things as well. So he says, he considers that instead of things happening 50,000 years ago, it looks to him, looking at his genetic information, that it's more like people came across maybe more like 1,500 years ago, just a lot more recent than 15,000 years ago. And so that would, so the first, what we call a civilization that they are looking at today is the Olmec civilization in South America. And these are people who made the huge, you've probably seen the huge, like 10 foot by 10 foot or so, big rock sculptures of heads. And they don't seem to be related to the Mayans or the Incans or anything else at all. But they seem to be their own civilization. So that civilization is from, let's see, that rose about 1,500 years ago. And then, which is about, 1,500 BC, which is about 3,500 years, 3,500 years ago. So that was the first one that we know of, civilization-wise. And then the Mayans came about around 300 or 400 BC, which is roughly similar to the time of the Romans. So we had the Mayan civilization in the New World, the Roman civilization in the Old World. And then he relates that you had the Huns who just sort of changed the how things were across the earth as they rampaged into the Europe. And there's German anthropologists consider that they call this period of time when the Huns were moving around it was the Great Wandering, I think. Yes, the Great Wandering of Peoples. And so it looks like peoples were coming out of the area of Central Asia, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and they were moving, and they were impacting the populations east and west of them. And this may well be, as Jeanson looks at it, this may be where people started coming across the Bering Strait. Now that's his theory. But it's very interesting, and it's interesting that when we look at the civilizations we know of around the world, we don't know of civilizations. We don't have any historical data of civilization except from the last 5,000 or 6,000 years. So, which seems to fit with very much with the civilizations that then came to the Americas. So it was just very interesting to see these things as you look at them and compare and contrast them. The LiDAR information now is telling us there were millions of people potentially in the Amazon, and other information tells us were probably millions of people in North America as well. And out of that many people, they weren't all millions of hunters and gatherers. And their archaeological finds show all kind of interesting things about civilization in the Americas. But we don't see them in our history books. Things have come along so quickly, as Jeanson states himself, that things have happened so quickly here with new information. We have new technologies like LiDAR. We have new archaeological finds all the time that support things that we didn't know about or that we were unsure of. And a good example of this is, up until the early 1900s or so, that it was pretty much assumed that the Bible was a historical book. And as ever people found new information, they would relate it to the Bible. And sometimes they related it incorrectly to the Bible. But they looked at how does that compare to the Bible. And you had archaeologists going to Troy and these different places in the Mediterranean area and doing their archaeology and making assumptions based on the Bible. They might have been good assumptions, but other people came along later on, because then it got to be more the end thing to say that, oh no, the Bible is just a book of myths, and it's just none of it's true. There's no proof of it. We know nothing about that. But in recent years, there's been a lot of archaeology that has actually shown that the history that we're seeing in the Bible is very much true. And it fits in very well, instead of the organizing of history, which I've always thought was interesting. And I've been watching historical findings come out over the last 50 years myself, and it's been really interesting how these experts are always trying to find a new twist to claim that something is true. And unfortunately, somebody who wants to sell a book or become famous, he's not always interested in looking at all the facts. If the fact doesn't work for him, he's going to throw it out too often. But if we look at all the facts, there's a lot of information out there that support that we've had millions of people on the earth who are no longer here. We've had civilizations that, even though we thought that there were major civilizations sometime around the earth, we just didn't realize that this is where they were. So anyway, another video about landscape, about history, and about integrity. We need to look at what is real and not just decide to believe in whatever we want to believe because it fits our prejudices, which is really what happened over the last 100 years. People were prejudiced against certain bodies of information, and they chose to make up new stuff to go by. So anyway, hope you got something out of this. Have a good day.